Hey party people, welcome back to the hair series. This is video number 5. The first one covers the basics on how to render hair and my approach to hair. Number 2 is straight hair. Number 3 is curly hairstyles, including like waves, finger waves, afros. And the fourth one was how to approach super short hairstyles. And in this video, we're going to go over super curly, braided, cornrowed, and dreaded hair. I don't know if I'm going to have very many more hair videos after this one. I'm thinking of doing one more where I talk about how to render hair with paint, how to transfer these skills into paint media, and I can't really think of any hairstyles I haven't gone over, but if you have any specific hairstyles that you would like to see rendered, drop me a comment below. Really, the best way to help me help you is to include a link to a picture, like a decent sized picture, so you don't have to try to explain what kind of hair you're talking about. It's like, this hairstyle, how would I render this hairstyle? Okay, and then I'll do that in a future video. So for a lot of these styles today, especially cornrows, it's going to be important to color in the skin tone first. So I've gone ahead and drawn in the styles, colored in the flesh tone, and put in my shadows. If you are confused about how to place shadows, I'm going to drop the link for my 3 kinds of shadow method video. So let's start with the easy one. Braids are easy. There are so many different kinds of braids out there, you guys, like regular braids, French braids, Dutch braids, twists, and then I Googled braid just to kind of take a look, and there's just so freaking many. But the basics is always render in the direction hair is growing. And make sure that each section of your braid looks 3D. Do you remember my quilted fabrics video where each section of the quilting had its own highlight and shadow because each one was its own separate 3D shape? If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll drop the link below. But each section of the braid is 3D. So if this is a section of the braid, and this is my light source, then I'm going to have a highlight here, and then this area is going to be in shadow. This area is going to be tucked into the shadow because the way it's squeezed into the twisted braid. So what I want to do is, in each section, always have a highlight at the top part where it crests up so that it looks 3D. This hair is going in this direction. If you do a braid like this where it's just partial hair, make sure your braid ends before the rest of her hair because the twisting action is going to just shorten the overall length of her hair. Leave some highlights across her hair. Always darkest at the tips, at the roots. And now that I have the basic shape, I'm going to go in with a color pencil and emphasize the braid. Draw the shapes. Keep those zigzaggy white highlights sitting across the hair. And because this is my light source, kind of everything on this side is going to be a little bit darker. Always render in the direction the hair grows. Add texture, but don't feel like you need to draw every single strand of hair. You can add a couple of loose strands so that she doesn't look like she has helmet hair. Right? And there you go. And you can do that with any braid style. Just make sure that each section looks like its own 3D shape, and you're constantly rendering in the direction the hair is going, and you hit the highlight and the shadow for each piece. When you're doing cornrows, wow, okay, you're not going to take this 3D approach to cornrows because cornrows are so tiny, y'all. You do not have time to sit there and draw every single and try to highlight and shadow every time. No, nobody has time for that. No. I mean, yeah, those illustrators who are really into like every single meticulous strand of hair. I've seen some really gorgeous illustrations like that. That is not our goal. We are designers. We put some hair there so we know what our customer looks like, and then we move on. So I'm going to show you guys two different cornrows, ones that are just like tight against the head, and then ones that are looser and like loosen up and end in curls at the bottom. Now, whenever you're going to do cornrows, you want to like design the layout of the cornrows. Okay. You'll see a lot of different kinds of designs out there, like which direction the braids are going. I've seen them go down like this, going across like this, you know, looping around. Like I've seen some really crazy cornrow patterns. So you're going to design that first. So here's the center back of his head. I'm gonna like loop this in here and I'm gonna put in this design because I can. And like this at the nape of his neck, there's his neck, there's his ear, there's his jaw. And yeah, it is a challenge to draw and render darker skin tones. Just because when you're working with these kinds of details, it's not as visible, but whatever suits your customer, whatever's gonna make it look good. Like most of you who are familiar with me like knows that anytime I do really bright colors, really white, like pale colors, I love to put them on black models. They really look the best. So I'm going to take a skinny black marker and I'm going to put in the rows and make them as neat and even as possible because that's the way it's done. Make sure they stand out a little bit away from the head. Now you know why. Put the skin tone in first. Yeah, they have to stand away from the head a little bit because they're 3D. They stick out, you know. So you want to see that that bump. And then I'm going to take my black color pencil and I'm going to give it some little zigzags so that you can see the roots of the hair, you know, being pulled into the braid, right? Because if you have a braid, you know, here's your cornrow, and you're going to see those little hairs getting pulled into the braid, right? So you're going to see those little zigzags. Ta-da, there you go. So on this one, I'm going to do a hairstyle where there's lots of cornrows. They're all stacked on top of each other so you don't see a lot of the scalp. And even if it is all black, I'm going to use 3 different colors to kind of give it some depth. Otherwise, it's just going to look kind of stacked on, you know, just kind of like a mess. I'm going to start with this cocoa bean dark brown color. And I'm going to lay down the initial braids. And then I'm going to create the shape. And then I'm going to curl the bottom as if the braids only came halfway and then the rest was released. Like I've seen girls with this hair, it's really pretty. So we're going to bring this down and we're going to curl this up. I'm going to shorten this as if we're getting tucked behind her ear. I'm then gonna take this soft black and I'm gonna add some. Cornrows are sitting on her head and the braids are coming undone and the curls are coming down her back. Because her ear is right here and we've like tucked these braids behind her ear. And there's her jaw. Little eyelash. And then I'm going to take my super black. So yeah, it's not about seeing so much of the scalp, except on the sides where you're going to see those individual ones. But really like adding layers of the colors so that you see some depth and you're starting to see some of the individual cornrows as opposed to this sort of like black. And then I'm going to add some of those hairs on the sides here like this. I'm going to add some curls in here where there are just like a few loose tendrils. So that, yeah, it does look still mostly black. All right, let's do some super curly hair. Super curly hair is messy. And you're never gonna, I say never, I say mostly, you're never gonna see like super curly hair that's so perfectly neat and precise. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna give me like sections of super curly hair that are kind of casually tossed about. Section of super curly hair, section, kind of like slanting, kind of zigzagging across the head so that it looks a little bit tousled. And then you're gonna take the color pencil and you're gonna just mess everything up some more. A section of curly hair, and then I'm gonna do another section of curly hair. And then here's another section of curly hair. Here's another section. Here's another section. And another section. Section until you're starting to get curls all over the place. While that's nice that it shows the direction everything is going in, that's a lot of white space. So I'm gonna go in with this darker color, slightly darker color, and fill in some of these spaces with more of these curly sections. So again, these colors that are similar to each other, they're creating depth and defining the shapes. In this case, defining the curls, kind of minimizing the white space while still allowing some to be there so that it looks like there are bits of highlights just sprinkled all across the curly hair. And then I'm going to take this color pencil in burnt ochre and add the hairy texture, emphasize some sections, add some tendrils, always rendering in the direction hair is growing. Sometimes I'll add a few pencil strokes in here. That's super curly, tousled hair. Let's do some dreads. I would say there are two basic categories of dreads. There are the little tiny kinky twists. I mean, and they can be skinnier and longer, but they're, generally on the shorter side and much more narrow and tightly twisted. And then there's the thicker twists, matted hair that, they're thicker, they tend to be longer, and then they like kind of taper to nothing because of course hair is denser, closer to your head. And then as you keep twisting, there's like less hair to twist. Cover that so it doesn't smear. So I'm going to take my brown and I'm going to get in there at the root, not worrying about highlights because dreaded hair is matted and twisted, so there are no highlights. And I'm going to sweep that one dread with one marker swoop and make sure that I pick up at the end to create that taper like this. So try to keep those cylindrical shapes. And let them taper down to nothing. And then I'm going to take my color pencil and I'm going to kind of reinforce these shapes so that you're seeing the individual dreads, but then also adding that diagonal, twisted, matte texture. And then back here, as you know, hair is always darkest because it's in shadow in the back. But otherwise, you're not going to see like highlight shadow or a lot of distinctions like that. And sometimes you see them curl a little bit towards the end. And then for the little short, skinny twists, you're going to first start off by doing the basic shapes. And yeah, they're going to stick out some. And then I'm going to take my black and I'm going to fill in some of these gaps. I'm going to treat it like those cornrows where, you know, you want some depth and definition of individual pieces. So you're going to go ahead and do some light black and some dark black. And these styles, you know, that's why it's so much easier to have the head and the skin tone in so that, you know, when you're putting in all these little kind of like almost spikes all over, you kind of know the general shape of the head to kind of wrap it around. And then I like to add in some texture. You know, these little twists, they don't have the wispy, sharp ends like the longer dreads do. They're kind of blunt at the edges. So you want to help create that textured, sort of twisted, blunt shape on these. And there you go. Super curly, braided, cornrowed, half cornrowed, and dreaded twisted hair. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer than, you know, like a straight bob, but God, that's boring just doing straight hair day in and day out. Don't you want to like design cool clothes for everybody? I do. I want everybody to wear my clothes. If you have a question, check the info box first. Maybe I've answered your question. Still have a question? Drop me a comment. Want to see me do a specific hairstyle? Drop me a link to an image in the comments. You know, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, blah, 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 whatever. Check out the other hair videos. Good times for everybody. Da, 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 da. I'm a little bit hyper today. Okay. See you next time.